with the supermodel filter.
Right.
Supermodel filter.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we good?
Yep, we're good to go.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Misklis. I'm the Vice President of Community Enhancement at the Round Rock Chamber, and I have been invited here today to tell you about 1 Million Cups Round Rock. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with 1 Million Cups, but it is a program that was developed by the Kaufman Foundation.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yep, we're good to go. So.
Continue? Okay. So the 1 Million Cups program was developed by the Kaufman Foundation as a way to bring community together. Over their years and years of research on entrepreneurship, they found that entrepreneurs tend to get together over a cup of coffee, hence the 1 Million Cups name. But the bottom line is 1 Million Cups is about bringing people together, exchanging ideas, supporting each other in a nurturing environment. And people have to apply. We're focused on early stage startups, so companies that are about 5 years old or younger apply to present. And then they are, we evaluate their applications, we connect them with a coach, which has been working very nicely, and then they come to our audience and present their companies. And it's not a pitch for investors, it's not a pitch for sales. This is a presentation about what your company is, what the purpose is of your company. And along with that, it's an opportunity for you to share with our audience what barriers you're having, what are you struggling with, what are some of the issues that keep you up at night when it comes to thinking about growing your business. And the audience becomes your instant advisory board. It really is, when it's so simple to talk about and describe, but when you're in the room and it's happening and you see this magic and this energy that's being created, really is a valuable tool, not just for the presenter to gain those nuggets and to be able to, whether it's pivot or, modify their business model, but there are so many aha moments for audience members as well. We have entrepreneurs at all stages in the audience. We have bankers, we have city council members, the mayor is one of our frequent visitors. It truly is the community coming together and supporting one another. This is an initiative that the Round Rock Chamber brought to Round Rock. We applied to be a community, a 1 Million Cups community, and we did it because at the Chamber, our mission is to lead in economic generation for the city. And we know, as you all know, that economic development is also local. It also starts with homegrown companies, which is why we're really focused on developing our entrepreneurs and making sure that they have the resources they need here in our community. So I do want to tell you a little bit about our presenters. We did launch 1 Million Cups Round Rock a year ago. In October of 2017. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, which we're very proud of. Since our launch, we have had 18 presenter applications. 12 of those have been in the launching or scaling phase. 17 of those are less than 5 years old, which is fantastic because that is our target market. And to date, we have had 13 companies that have been invited to present. 50% of those have been tech companies. One of those was a nonprofit, which as a career, my entire career has been spent in nonprofit, so I was really excited to see a nonprofit also in the mix. So 1 Million Cups is a national program. There are over 150 communities across the nation. And so you will see from time to time that we have presenters from other communities. And that was the case early on in our program. I will tell you that starting about February of this year, it is primarily Round Rock based companies that are applying to present. So while we are not going to weed out the out-of-town companies from presenting, it really has been encouraging to see that the program is working and that we are inspiring those local entrepreneurs to come out and share their companies with us. Since our launch, we've had about 700 attendees. We average about 65 participants at every event, which is phenomenal. I have spoken to organizers across the nation, and most of the events are much smaller. They have organizing teams of, anywhere from 2 to 5. Here in Round Rock, we have an organizing team of 11 individuals, which has been fantastic. These are entrepreneurs, these are events organizers, community leaders. It truly has been a grassroots effort, and I believe that's why we've been so successful. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is that we went back to our presenters to ask them, what did you like about presenting at 1 Million Cups Around Rock? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? And hands down, every presenter said, your coaching and your audience is phenomenal. They went on and on about the coaching process and how helpful it was, not only for the newbies, but even for those veteran 1 Million Cups presenters that have gone, and presented to 1 Million Cups communities throughout Texas and even other states. One in particular said to me, I've done this so many times, I didn't really think I needed the coaching, and I remember him saying, I don't really need this coaching, and I said, no, this is our process, and this is something that we do with all of our presenters. And he came back and said, I didn't think I would gain anything, but I learned so much. It really, helped me complete my presentation or tweak a few things so that I would be more impactful. And the audience. Hearing not only from those newbies that are doing it for the first time, but for those veterans to say the energy in this room is contagious is really fantastic. My favorite comment is presenting at 1 Million Cups Around Rock was a great experience, and it's made me a better entrepreneur overall. So, we have had a phenomenal year. It's wonderful, but I always like to tell the organizers that we're just getting started, and I shared that with the Round Rock community as well. This is only the beginning for us. I see us getting bigger and better and making a bigger impact. I want us to continue to strive for excellence. I also want us to strive to identify opportunities for growth. One of our organizers will be representing 1 Million Cups Around Rock here in a couple of weeks at the National Organizer Summit. And at the top of his list is working to identify other coaches so that we can see how they're doing it. What are some things that we can tweak? What are some things that we can improve on? So 1 Million Cups Round Rock is only one piece of the puzzle. We are one piece of the puzzle in what we like to remind everyone is a very young entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we have a lot of work to do. But I am very excited to be able to tell everyone that 1 Million Cups Round Rock is helping us establish a very strong foundation for our ecosystem. As far as our vision for the future, it goes beyond hosting these events on a monthly basis. It really is about looking at the bigger picture, looking at the ecosystem as a whole. Who are our partners? What are the issues we need to be thinking about? And we want to share our opinion about those issues. We want to talk about all of the things that are important to entrepreneurs: capital, diversity, quality of life, education, policy issues. So we're just getting started, and it really has been an exciting journey. And for those of you who are in the Round Rock area on a regular basis, or you want to come out here and visit us, 1 Million Cups Round Rock meets on the first Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. We do have a website. You can find us at the 1 Million Cups website, and all you have to do is type in our community, Round Rock. You'll be able to see our organizers. You'll be able to see our meeting location. But I definitely invite you out, and thank you all so much for having me today.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are so many reasons. There truly is a financial impact for this type of work that we're doing. And really the statistics show it best. You know, companies that get diversity and inclusion right, they are more profitable, they're more innovative, their customers are happier, you know, their employees stay longer, they're more engaged. You can see some of these statistics. I mean, and these are the statistics that are catching the eye of our leaders, including Michael Dell. You know, companies that are top quartile with having women in leadership, they're 21% more likely to outperform their peer companies. Same with ethnic and cultural differences. If you have you know, top quartile of ethnic employees in your company, you're 35% more likely to beat the competition. How can you ignore this? And so more and more we're focusing on this. We see this as a core tenet of the work that we're doing. The individuals that we are hiring and promoting, we're keeping a lens on diversity for that reason. Yes, it's the right thing to do, and it's definitely great for everyone, but there's also a financial benefit to all of us as well. So let me tell you a little bit about what Dell is doing around diversity and inclusion. We have built our program around 3 enduring strategy areas, and the one that's probably most important is commitment. Really getting our leaders to be in front of this. Having Dell leaders that are driving an agenda of having a diverse workforce, really building up a diverse pipeline, developing their talent, giving opportunities to all. We also have a focus on our external brand. You know, how we look out to the marketplace and to future employees, future customers is extremely important to us. To have a strong brand, we are focusing on partnering with diverse organizations externally, universities. We're doing a lot of work to really try to build the brand of Dell around this topic and show thought leadership. And then finally, with our culture, we want to have a winning culture. You know, we want to have a culture where people want to work, where they want to stay, a culture where they're inviting others to do business with us, to work with us. And so there's a lot of work that we're doing in these 3 areas, and I'm going to share just some of those with you. So first, with regards to culture, I want to share about our employee resource groups, and I think some of you may be familiar with these. These are employee networks that are set up to really bring people together of like mind, like interest, and be able to, you know, have networking opportunities, have professional development opportunities. But more importantly, we're setting these up to also have customer impact. So, you know, we think about some of the, you know, some of the various employee resource groups we have. We're trying to hit all of the diverse dimensions within our company. So whether it's whether you're part of the LGBT community and we have a Pride employee resource group for those in that community and those who are allies, or if you're part of the Latino community, we have groups for all of these, and we encourage all of our employees to be members, to be active members, and really to not just be a member of a group that you necessarily would typically associate with, and even to be members of multiple of these. I mean, these are very positive groups, and we've had a lot of great impact. And I'll mention the business impact that these groups are having. Just a couple of examples. When I think about our True Ability employee resource group, for instance, these are our individuals with special needs that work for our company. They bring a very unique perspective, and they're thinking about solutions for customers that have the same different abilities that they do. So for instance, with our True Ability, recently we had a group of our employees who had visual impairment as well as hearing impairment, and they were actually worked with our engineers at the company to come up with new products and to think about solutions that, you know, our engineers maybe hadn't thought about. Another example of where our employee resource groups are making business impact, again, I'll mention our Latino Connection ERG. We are bringing our Spanish-speaking employees to our executive briefing center to meet with our customers who are from Spanish-speaking countries. It seems small, but these small connection points with our customers are making a big impact. So we are, you know, we're always talking about the benefit of these, but just take a look at these numbers. So we have about 130,000 employees in our company. 37,000 of these team members are active diversity champions and are very engaged in these types of organizations. Over 60 countries involved. So we have, you know, employees all around the world that are focused on these topics and really pushing an agenda of building a more diverse and inclusive workforce. And it's great. As I mentioned earlier, diversity is good, it's the right thing to do, but again, there is a business impact to all of this. So this next slide, there's a lot of data up here, and I'll just explain it to you very quickly. We do an annual survey at our company to see how engaged are our employees. And the reason we do this is we can draw a direct correlation. The more engaged an employee is, the more satisfied their customers are. There's direct communication, or direct correlation to this. So we have what we call an employee net promoter score, ENPS, And that is, there's a direct correlation. The higher that is, the higher that we have found that our customer NPS score goes up, at the same time. And NPS, essentially, Net Promoter Score, is would you recommend Dell to others? It's very simple. And so what's so interesting is just by being a member of an ERG, we have found that year over year, just by being a member, you already have a higher Net Promoter Score as an employee. And we have found through our surveying and through different focus groups that the more actively engaged an employee is in the ERG, the more events that they attend, the more volunteering that they do externally with these groups, you can see just how much more they become engaged as employees. And again, there's a financial impact to this. We also see these employee resource groups, again, another way of building inclusion. We see that employees are more optimistic. They're more inspired by the company of what we're doing. They can talk more about our strategy as a company. So these are all important topics and ones that we're focused on. There's a program I want to share with you since today's topic that we're covering is around inclusion and the business case of this. Dell has been doing something very special that is unique in the marketplace. I say it's special because we're the only tech company currently leading this type of initiative, and we were the first tech company to actually to do this particular type of program. And so I want to tell you a little bit about it. So we have a program that we call Mini Advocating Real Change. Okay, and this is our Keystone Inclusion Initiative. It's a global initiative. As I mentioned, for about 4 years we've been building this, and it's been a grassroots movement. And what's exciting about it, so there's an organization that maybe you've heard of. It's a nonprofit. It's called Catalyst. Michael Dell sits on the board of this organization. They focus specifically on advancing women in the workplace. They also focus on building inclusive workplaces. And they incubated this idea of MARC, what we call MARC, or Mini Advocating Real Change. Theirs had a bit of a different, when they first came out with this, and we were part of the early adopters, they actually called it Men Advocating Real Change. And it was this concept that, for 50 years that they had been researching, the advancement of women in the workplace, the focus had always been, what can we do to really build up women around mentoring and professional development so that they can excel in their careers, and there's a lot of value in that. But they flipped it on its head. They said, well, let's call out the elephant in the room that men make up the majority of leadership positions in organizations, many organizations. So what are we doing to really leverage that majority to make the most change possible for everybody? And so that's how this idea incubated, called Men Advocating Real Change. That was actually the name of our program kind of going into it. We have further evolved this because this program now is not just about gender. It's not just about advancing women. It's about advancing everyone, that everybody can have an equal opportunity. And so we've called our initiative now Mini Advocating Real Change, kind of this recognition that we all play a part in this. Inclusion starts with I, right? And all of us. It kind of starts with me, it starts with you. And so what we do with this MARC program is it's very unique in that we're building inclusion through these leader-led programs. It's kind of fascinating. We have these learning workshops, half-day workshops where executives in our company are actually leading 4-hour sessions for our people managers. And those people managers are leading it for our individual contributors. And so we're just cascading this in a very grassroots movement. And what we're doing is we're in these 4-hour sessions, we are talking about topics you don't typically talk about in the workplace. We're talking about the unconscious biases that we all have and the impact that has on partnerships at work. We talk about other topics, as you can see. We talk about privilege, and this can be an uncomfortable topic for some, but really we talk about privilege in the way of just saying, let's be aware of our privileges and let's use them honorably. We're also talking about inside-outside groups, how the dynamics of interpersonal relationships impact, again, how work gets done, how you can influence the work that you do upon others. So we also we still have a very large focus on gender role conditioning. How are gender dynamics playing out? What do we need to do to get more women in leadership positions? What's holding us back? And how do we move the numbers? And so this has been just a really key program for us that I think has been very successful. We've seen that, as you can see here, 80% of our leaders who've gone through this, it's changed how they lead. Probably more importantly, over 60% of their team members who report to these leaders have seen positive change in their leaders since participating in this type of session. So we do see this as something that is a game changer. It's something that Michael Dell and the leadership team have really invested in, and something that we see as a multi-year strategy. So I wanted to share that with you again as just a way that we are trying to change the game, a way that we're trying to build a more inclusive culture. And again, just a couple of proof points around this. It's sometimes hard to draw direct correlation to culture change. There's not always empirical data to do that, but we've got some real proof points here. Obviously, how many people have gone through this? Over 10,000 of our team members have participated in these leader-led sessions, which I think is just fantastic, fascinating. This one I find to be very interesting is our ERG membership. So I talked about employee resource groups earlier. Since we started Mark, we've seen these exponentially grow. And maybe more importantly is we've seen now kind of groups that are becoming allies of others, champions of others. And so, just the example there is having how many more men are now part of our women's ERG, kind of demystifying this idea that, it's only women that are going to be driving for advancement of women. That we can all play a part in that. And just some other proof points I'll mention. Again, the business case of inclusion. This market program has been something that our customers are now extremely interested in. More and more, we're getting requests from other companies saying, "Gosh, how did you get this off the ground? How did you get Michael Dell to spearhead this and champion it?" We even have tech companies coming to us asking us, "How did you start this? And how can we do it? How can we partner together?" So there's an opportunity here to really change the landscape of our industry and tech, but really change society, and that's what we're talking to our employees about, and placing the importance on that. So just to kind of close out my section, I did want to share just some kind of best practices. I mentioned the Catalyst organization earlier. They're a heavy research organization. They did a recent study around what does it look like to be an inclusive leader. So, as you begin to think about how you might be more inclusive in your own life and in your own business behaviors, a couple of ideas to think about. Empower others. Really, so often in work, I know that it's easy to give the big project to the people that we know and trust. But let's kind of think outside of that. Empower others, believe in them, and then hold them accountable. That's about building inclusive teams. Being courageous is something we talk a lot about in these Mark sessions that we have. Having courageous conversations, trying to build a work culture where I may trip and stumble on words that I say that offend somebody, or in an action that I do. Having an environment where that's okay, and where I can correct you and we can continue to build upon the work that we're doing together. It takes courage to do that, and it also takes humility. That's one thing that we talk to our leaders a lot about is, how can they be more humble in asking for feedback and how they're doing and being an inclusive leader, and being willing to act on that. So I just wanted to share these couple of thoughts with you, and I hope it's been helpful as you think about the business case for inclusion in your own business.
I'm asking now for any questions.
Yeah, please ask questions if you have any.
Oh, they're a little behind us, so they're still watching you speak.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you're doing your wrap up.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm going to take the microphone down. Mic's stuck.
Great. So, any questions in the room? Yes.
You talked about a lot of different opportunities to network, which is very dear to my heart.
Yes.
You also talked about allies and alliances. How does Dell work, particularly with smaller businesses, in terms of creating alliances and joint opportunities?
Right. So hopefully you heard the question. What is Dell doing to build joint alliances with smaller businesses? We actually do a lot around this. We do a lot of funding around diverse supplier management. Really trying to fund small businesses, in particular women-owned or minority-owned businesses, and we have a large amount of spend in that area. We also do a lot to try to even provide training on what does it mean to work with Dell. As small companies, sometimes it's challenging to know just how do you even tap into the big behemoth like Dell. So even just training people, how do you do business like that? But within our company, allies, we think about allies in terms of, I can be a champion and an ally to somebody in the LGBT community just by understanding their experience better. I can be an ally to a woman as a man if they are, being spoken over in a meeting, as simple as just saying, hey, did you hear the good idea that this individual had, and maybe stand up in that way. So we see allying, kind of these partnerships, both internal and external. Hope that answers
Thank
the
you.
question. Yeah. And we have questions online?
Well, here's a question from me.
Yep.
You provided some really awesome statistics on the impact that these programs have had for employees and management at Dell.
Yep.
But do you have any personal stories or anecdotes of a time where you observed or viscerally felt, just in your day-to-day life at Dell, that these programs were making a difference, or that there was a culture shift that you could notice personally?
Yes. So they can hear the questions hopefully, but my own personal experience with this kind of focus on inclusion, excuse me, I teach a lot of these classes. So I mentioned these leader-led sessions that we're doing for people. I taught 2 of these classes this week, and these classes to me are just, they're 4-hour discussions. We don't even call them trainings because it really is a critical business discussion. And again, it's topics that where you get very vulnerable. I personally have had some personal things happen in my life recently where I thought I was kind of alone. I thought, I was kind of walking through this on my own. And I have found through both classes this week that I found colleagues that I work with that are dealing with the exact same thing as I am. Some of these things were personal that I didn't feel comfortable talking about at work. Going through this type of learning event with each other, I have now new allies in my own life, people that can champion for me and can support me through some of this. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
Are
that's
there
it.
any other questions?
I don't think we have any online, so I think that's it for us.
Okay.
I'm going to take you out in 5.
She said that.
Well, it's so nice to be here on this very soggy afternoon, standing in Round Rock with some very special people and special friends. And I know down in San Marcos, you are enjoying being with a lot of people who are around you. So we're going to talk today really about how do you increase your return on investment, or your ROI, of the networking you're doing right around you and in the future. I want to thank Dr. Menifee and Texas State, but especially the tech group who are here with us today, making sure that we have enough water, that we have enough people, and that it's going so well. And my degree is in radio, television, film, so it was really fun to be counted down to get this started. So let's get started. I am Jan Triplett. I do have a PhD. Please don't call me Dr. Triplett unless you're one of my students. I am an adjunct professor at my alma mater, which is Mary Baldwin University in Stanton, Virginia. Spelled Stones, pronounced Stanton. We have a master's program in business and professional skills, and that's where I teach, along with being the CEO of the Business Success Center, which is not a nonprofit, just to be clear. It's really there to help owners and their businesses grow and really prepare for the growth potential that's out there. And so that's why we're going to be talking about networking today, but from perhaps a little bit different perspective, but building on what Richard Lopez said, and Dana said, and what Peggy's going to say. When we look at networking, maybe some of you think, well, it's pretty old-fashioned. What does it have to do with me? I know how to do it. Why does it make a difference? Many years ago, for some of you, you might not even have been around doing much. About 15 or 20 years ago, I sat in the bottom of the Hyatt Hotel with two women friends, and I said to them, we got a problem, which is we have a great chamber in Austin, but there are no women, not at the highest level. And so we thought maybe we should do something. And so what we did was we created the Texas Women's Chamber of Commerce of Texas. And that is a really good example of how networking can happen just over a drink, or when you're standing in line. And in Texas, we hate to wait. So if there's an opportunity for us to network, we do. What I put up here for you all to see is what we consider at the Business Success Center as we prepare owners to grow and their businesses to grow, because it takes both, is to look at the 7 steps. And networking fits into all of these, whether we're talking about the customer, the right model and solution, the lifestyle, because we want to make sure that your lifestyle and goals match, whether we're talking about the right competitive identification and competitive advantage, best positioning, profitable pricing, emphasis on profit, and also to make sure that you have something that you can exit from successfully. Even if we're talking about some of you who might want to start a nonprofit business, and at Mary Baldwin we do have people who come to our programs to learn how to be part of or run a small business that is a nonprofit business, you still have most of these components, even though obviously you can't exit exactly. But networking has a role to play in all of these, and if you think about these, you're going to be able to make your own opportunities double, triple, it's off the charts. When we look at the kinds of things that you have heard about today, we've really been hearing about these basic kinds of networks and these basic things that networks require. So when we look at networks, and I brought a little prop with me. This is my favorite net, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. But when we look at it, we're looking at, both formal and informal networks. And when we looked at what has been said just a few minutes ago by Dana, she was talking about opportunities that were happening at a business level. When Richard Lopez was talking about, he was talking about what happens between businesses and between people and between allies who might be just cohorts in an opportunity. And when we look at networking, that's really what we're talking about. But your networking, in order to increase your return on investment, really has to have 3 parts to it. It has to have goals. You can certainly go and meet somebody. Peg, Richmond, and I are good friends. We're going to have lunch. That's a goal. I don't get to see her very often. That's a goal. Is it a networking? Not exactly. Taking and giving back. That's the real key about networking, is that it's not mentoring and it is not prospecting. I run a program that I started called the Profit Mover Advisory Team. And what we do is we work with owners of businesses And we come in as a whole advisory team. Think of us as kind of a board of directors, and one of us is an IP attorney, and one of us is a social media expert from right here in Round Rock. So all 6 of us do something different. And when we work with a client, we work together to make that business grow, because it may take a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to run a small business and to help it grow. Even if you're not looking at taking it public or franchising it or licensing it, it really takes people coming together. And so I was so glad that Dr. Menifee asked me to do this, because this is one of my favorite subjects. I have a note down there in the bottom corner talking about net plus work. And I want to talk about it just for a minute, because I know that we're on schedule today and trying to be very close to our time. This is a network in its own sense, because it is a net. It holds things in and it takes things out. And you can't see it very well, but there are knots in every corner. And those knots allow your network to stay in good shape. And that means that if I cut between any 2 of these, the net itself would not fall apart. What do you keep in a network? Certainly you keep friends, you keep allies, etc., but you keep information, you keep good things in it, and you keep things that would be bad for you or bad for your business out. And so really thinking about networking as this combination of a net and the magic word, work. So what's work? When we talk about it in the United States, we talk about payment for doing something. Salary, profit, etc. And it is this combination that has to go into your approach to networking for success and making sure that you are getting the highest return on your investment. And it is really, as I said, not about prospecting, not about mentoring. Those are very good things, but they serve a different function. They have a different goal. And when we look at mentoring, we're really looking at a situation where we are looking to someone who knows more than we do, who has better contacts perhaps than we do, who has more experience, and we're following their lead. That's a great thing to do. That's what we do with our Profit Mover team. When we look at prospecting, usually we're looking for sales. And sometimes there are organizations that you'll go to or meetings that you'll go to, and they really are prospecting opportunities. That's not bad. The whole point is to get leads, leads for careers, leads for business sales, all kinds of opportunities. But it doesn't have the same function as a network does. And this is an example of the kinds of networking goals that you might have. And it's important to know what your goals are and to then share those with the people who are in your network. So we have personal, we have enjoyment, enrichment, or giving to others. We have professional, we have business, career, and we have a way to increase your network. All of those contribute to that ROI that we were just talking about. There are rules. This is not something that you can go into and say, well, you know, I'm just going to do my thing and whatever happens, happens. And I brought another little model, and it's in multicolors, and that's because when you look at your network, it also, just like we've been talking about diversity today, is in multicolors. And you may be needing to use your business network for one thing, your personal network for something else, and your third network, which is your association, memberships that you're part of. When you graduate from Texas State, you've got a great network. When you come out of any organization, or even looking at your neighbor across the hall from you, you have all of these networks that you can draw on, but they do come in different colors and different shapes, and they don't quite all fit together, but they're connected through you, and that's what makes you valuable to your network, and that's very important. When we look at the rules, there are 10 of them. It doesn't have anything to do with the 10 Commandments exactly, but it does mean that you really look at how those rules operate for you. We're going to talk about them from a little bit different perspective, but if you'd like a copy of the rules, you can go to my website at ownersview.com, or you can simply email me. I wanted to share very quickly a few networking tips. One of those, because my degree is in communications, I put communicate as the first one. And that's because when we network, we can certainly go into an organization or a meeting or a class or write something or send something out through social media, put it on Facebook, etc. And we can say, gee, I'm looking for a job. Well, that only tells somebody part of what your goal is. Or I'm looking for a new client, or I'm looking for a product or service to add to what I'm going to build in my business, or I'm looking for help in terms of marketing or intellectual property, etc. What you communicate becomes really important, and if you think about that first, you're going to do so much better. Manners are important. We're here in Texas. We do try to say please and thank you. We do try to be gracious, and here we are right now in flood season. We weren't quite expecting it to be quite as much of a flood season, but October is always a rainy season for us. And manners become even more important when you are, or they are, or somebody is in need. And when you can connect in these different ways, you break down so many walls by simply remembering please and thank you, reaching out and giving back. I put always take cards. Now that seems really old-fashioned. Who uses cards anymore? Nobody carries cards, but yes they do. Sometimes they are virtual cards, but you cannot write on a virtual card. You can send something, you can text it, but the nice thing about having a piece of paper is that not to give your card out, but to give it to somebody, as I did just a few minutes ago, because that person didn't have cards. I said, will you write your information on the back of it? And so our wonderful tech guy, he took a picture of that card. So I have that information, and now he does. Cards make a difference simply because what you're trying to do in networking is keep the communication flowing. Make those connections keep going and growing. You're also trying to get rid of the ones that don't work, by the way, which is what gets us to red flag warnings. Red flag warnings are opportunities where you get a chance, not through gossip, although if you look at the definition of gossip, it's not necessarily bad. It can be really helpful. If you were going to go and network with somebody and you said, I really want to hire that person. And Peg over here, she said, well, you know, that may be good, but you might want to check this out. She doesn't have to say any more than that, is that my warning signal goes in play. I trust Peg, she's on my network list. And so she says, well, maybe you should just check this out. Maybe perfectly fine, but she's given me information that's useful. I remember a time going into a hotel in Austin. The hotel does still exist, which surprises me. The person who did this does not. I mean, they are alive, but they don't do this job anymore. It was for a very important meeting. And I don't think it was the meeting that we had Michael Dell come as our guest, but it was somebody of that ilk. And the time came for the meeting to end, just like we have situations here where I have to finish at the right time so that Peg can come on. And I was trying to work it so that we finished on time, but 2 minutes before that meeting was supposed to end, can you imagine the catering manager came in and there was a light switch at the door, and that person took that light switch just as if we were kindergartners and really, I promise you, flicked it on and off. Did she come to somebody and say, you know, you really need to wrap this up because we have to get ready? No, she just flipped the switch on and off. Red flag warning says, I say to Peg, if you're going to do an important meeting there for the Small Business Development Center, maybe you want to make sure that this person isn't there anymore, or you finish really early because this can happen. And that becomes part of the ROI that you bring to your network and that you should expect back from them. And that's why it's a combination of giving and taking. Networking early, that's another tip. Sometimes you don't know ahead of time that your house in Marble Falls is going to lose its deck, and you're going to get to watch it float down the Llano River. So you can't network early to know some things like that, but you can network early if you know that you're planning to change jobs, add something that is going to build your business, or you're going to want to take on a co-founder. Is you don't wait until you need the co-founder or you need the money or you need the whatever to network. You start early, you start putting the word out, and you trade. That's really a lot about what networking is all about. You do want to use your network. This is an issue that I've seen a lot. When we started the Women's Chamber, I had somebody who came up to me and said, you know, I give a lot back to this organization, but nobody ever uses me. She was a lawyer. And I thought, I started an organization, and a member came to me and said, nobody ever asks her when they have legal issues that they're willing to pay for. There's something wrong with this picture. It doesn't mean that you have to use them, but it does mean that you have to ask them and not expect to get everything for free. There is no free lunch. There's lunch that you can trade, but not free, all right? You do want to not overwork your network. It can be very easy for us to feel like we need to use everybody all the time and get everybody's opinion. Actually, probably a couple will do. You do want to network with people you like and you trust. Your ROI will go up if you don't select somebody that you think, well, I'm asking them that question because I think she really is the right person and she can get me in. That may be true, but she may be telling people about you or sharing information about you that doesn't match with what you want. And if you only work and network with people that you like and you trust, the better chance is, if you double check what you say, that they will say it the right way. You do want to work for others, and you do always want to look for new additions. That's really critical. If you look at your networking ROI, you have to count, because return on investment is about counting. One of the things I do is I teach a course on accounting and finance. I am not an accounts and a finance major. I told you what my degree is in. It certainly had nothing to do with numbers. But over all of the years that I've been in business working with people from accounting firms to private zoos, I know you have to count. You have to count whether we're talking about marketing and sales, whether we're talking about how and whom you hire, what projects you go after, what you add in terms of assets to the business, what you take on as liabilities, whether it's loans or investors, and Peg's going to talk about that when she talks about funding, but you have to count. And when you look at networking, you're trying to count from a baseline. That tells you how much time and effort you've spent and what are the results. And if you do that, you're going to be much more successful, and you're not going to get what we call network fatigue. So in my book called Networker's Guide to Success, which is an ebook, you're going to learn about network fatigue. And it's a strange thing. It's kind of like having too much of a good thing. And you don't know, well, should I go to this meeting or that meeting? Should I talk to this person or that person? And there's so many opportunities that you have to make choices. And if you start from some sort of a baseline and you know what your goals are and you have a budget of time and of money. So it's not just money. It's not just how much does it cost me to go to this event or that event or sign up for this class, etc. But you have this budget that's both time and money, and you have a contact sheet. Now, you can do it as a CRM, you can do it any way you want, but it's some way to keep track in a database format of what have been the results. Now, that sort of sounds like, boy, I'm taking all the fun out of networking. Well, networking can be fun, but it also can give you really great opportunities. So today we're talking about things that are sort of fun, but they're really concentrating on how it's more effective for you, and so that you don't get burned out and you don't come to me, as I've had people in classes tell me, is I don't do networking because it doesn't work. It doesn't work because they didn't do the work. They didn't prepare. They weren't ready. So you start with goals, add your time and cost, and you check results. It does work. I said it does work because I can tell you that it does. I've been in my business through 8 downturns and 8, maybe 9 upturns. I think we're in an upturn. And it does work. It comes into play just as Richard talked about, when you need it, if you're prepared for it. So it does work when you know your goal, when you share with your network, when you have a strategy and a process, and that you use that process every time until it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, you change it, because there are different levels of networking. Networking for beginners, networking for people who have some experience, and then for advanced. Because it doesn't work the same way in the same place for everyone, and particularly it changes by where you're located. I told you that we're in Texas. I am an adjunct professor in Virginia. I grew up in Illinois. I have a Japanese trade partner. We've done a lot of work overseas, and we have international people who are part of our program. And so it really changes every place you go. I do hope that you will connect with me. I've given you some opportunities here. This is not a plug. This is really saying, I'm here for you if you need me. I'm here for my students. I'm here for any small business owner or would-be owner or wannabe owner or whatever. And sometimes I end up doing a lot of business therapy. So if I can help, please ask. In the meantime, here's to your success. Again, thank you all, particularly you tech guys. I love you to death. Thank you for making me look so good. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Richmond. I am a business advisor with the Texas State University Small Business Development Center. And I'm here to talk about everybody's favorite subject, which is money, okay? Unfortunately, there tends to be a lot of confusion around money. People think that it is readily available. You just walk into the bank and they give it to you. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. Most businesses start off with their own funds. Their friends and family make loans to them. And I've kind of organized back here, startup phase, early phase, as you're growing, kind of what resources really work best and who's going to be interested in your business and funding you at that point. So bootstrapping, really, I'm going to cheat. I have a lot of notes and a lot of facts and figures, so everybody else that came before me was very polished. I'm going to refer, because I got some numbers for you. This bootstrapping, the average business owner is putting in about $48,000 of their own money to get going. And then the friends and family that they borrow from, we have a term for that called friends, families, and fools. I don't like to think of it that way. I like to think of it as friends, family, and fans, which includes in this category crowdfunding now. So in 2012, 2013, there was a big surge in crowdfunding, and at that point, there were about $7 million raised through about 1 million successful campaigns, and that went into small businesses in their startup. Typically, though, the average raise is only about $7,000. When you go to your friends and family, typically they're going to put in, on average, $23,000. So it's kind of this mix of your inner circle and who's really involved in the mission and believes in you, because that's who they're backing. If you're not able to get traditional lenders interested in your business, the lenders who are interested are community bankers. And so these are the people that new entrepreneurs don't really think about, they don't really know about them, they don't maybe hear about them, but there are several. There are community development financial organizations, there are community development corporations. They tend to be nonprofits, some of them are sponsored by the SBA. In Austin, there's BCL of Texas, there's Lift Fund, there's People Fund, and there's Axiom. And sometimes if you need some help repairing past credit incidents, or you have a low credit score, they can help you, because typically they will have a coaching arm or some kind of assistance along with their funding. The relationship there is what really counts, but these people are also going to want to see a business plan. They're going to want to see your pro formas. They're going to want to see a plan that actually makes sense and that they can get behind and realize it's got momentum and success behind it. Okay. Sometimes you can leverage trade credit. For those of you who don't know what trade credit is, it is when your supplier doesn't demand immediate payment when they bring you goods. So if you are a manufacturer and you can get a supplier to give you 30-day terms, and you're going to be able to produce your goods and get paid in 30 days, you can potentially not float the money for the supplies. You can actually have the supplier pay for them until you get paid. It's a good way if you're starting out, because sometimes you can actually get a manufacturer to fully support you with inventory, and you don't have to outlay large amounts of money to stock your store or to bring in materials. On the other hand now, as a business owner, you really need to think about whether or not you are going to extend credit terms. Because, and I'm not talking about taking credit cards for payment. I'm talking about allowing your customers to pay you for the goods you deliver in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. I have seen that lengthy cash cycle really cripple a lot of businesses. So you want to make sure that you know what your cash conversion cycle is and that you manage it very appropriately. This last category, the grants and incentives, I really didn't want to put it on here, but we get asked this question a lot. There are urban myths about I can go and get a grant to start my business. There are grants. There are strings attached to most grants. And when you get a grant, initially it tends to be small. You work your way up through a lot of accountability to a larger grant from the same institution if they have a phased plan. So where we see these most is maybe in economic development situations, like a Main Street project. They want to fill the lease spaces on the Main Street, and so they'll give you incentives to move in, like a lower grant for the first year. We also see it in government grants to develop technology. So there's Small Business Innovation Research grants and technology transfer grants. Those tend to be smaller, $50,000 to $100,000 to start off. You'll go up to the 2 million mark as you've proved yourself and you have a concept and a product that's ready to be commercialized. So moving on from startup into early stage, a lot of people know this first 2 years in business as the valley of death. It's much harder to get a loan at this point because now you're in business and people want to see that you have revenue and they want you to build off of revenue. It's almost easier for, say, an established franchise, or if you come to the table with your own investment into the business, to get a loan before you start than during these first 2 years. You can still fund through your revenue, through your inner circle, through trade credit. But one of the things that you may want to consider, especially for cash conversion or working capital cycle, is there are alternative lenders. What they're doing is they're funding paper. So if you have an accounts receivable, an invoice, they will buy that from you and forward 80% of that as an example. They will then collect payment from your customer. When they are paid on the invoice, they will forward the rest of your money, but they'll retain their fees. Those are usually pretty expensive. They are considered short-term. So you're paying 3% monthly sometimes. You can also hear them called factoring, but there are a number of products under that product category. There are also payday loans and merchant services, which you can borrow from the people who are providing your credit card services. Again, very expensive, very short term usually. Those are not good options, but they are options. What we're seeing now that's kind of in this realm are what I'm going to just list as digital lenders. A lot of these are cash flow lenders. Some of them are traditional SBA lenders, but they have very different terms. They're looking for high revenue monthly. They are looking for usually at least 6 months in business. They're looking for, some of them no minimum credit scores, some of them have a minimum credit score. You can go online and look for these, but I'm going to read you a few of them. Some of these names you might know, like Lendio and Cabbage, Lending Tree, Loan Builder, Reliant Funding, Fundbox, Blue Vine, Tiger Funding, Fora Financial, and Toro. As an example, so Lendio, they'll loan between $1,000 and $5 million. They are one of the SBA lenders. You have to be in business for 6 months, have $8,000 in monthly revenue, but they don't require a minimum credit score. Cabbage is a little bit different. They're $2,000 to $250,000, 12 months in business, $4.2 thousand in monthly revenues, no minimum credit score. You can find all this online. I can also send it to Jana if you're interested. You can ask for that. But know that you're not tapped out if your local lender is not somebody that you have a relationship with. Okay? As you move on into the established and growing phase of your business, this is where traditional lenders start getting interested in you. Mostly because what they're lending on are assets. So you need to have assets. Prior to startup, you're going to pledge personal assets. Now you're having corporate assets. They're still going to want you to have a full-on business plan. Sometimes they'll accept an abbreviated business plan like an executive summary, but they want to see real solid, not pie-in-the-sky pro formas. The average loan there is about $144,000, and there are about 97,000 SBA-backed loans made annually. We also get into the investment group in this area. You've got angels or venture capitalists. So there are about 268,000 angel investors. These are first equity outside of your inner circle investors. They are looking for like a 10-time return on their investment within usually 3 years. Sometimes they'll extend to 5. Average investment is $75,000, but most are going to be more in the $10,000, the $25,000 to $50,000 range. It's not big increments. And there are about 62,000 of those types of investments made annually. The VCs, though, they're in a different category altogether. These guys are looking for hyper-growth companies, very scalable. There's only 462 active VCs in the US. Their average investment is anywhere between $2.6 and $5.4 million. And about 3,700 of those investments are made annually. Downside of that is that leadership is most likely going to be pushed aside or replaced very quickly. So that's kind of the spectrum of some of the most talked about lending sources. I just want to say a word about the lending products. It's not always an SBA loan. They will do a line of credit. They have their own commercial instruments. They will maybe give you a credit card. They can do a capital stack that fits your exact needs. So long-term goes against long-term debt, goes against long-term assets, and short-term is also used against the short-term. You meet people along this way, and you need to know that there are 2 sides to this process. The people you're going to meet they're selling, they're salespeople. They want to get you in the door, and they're judged on the number of applications. But the people typically who are looking at your application are underwriters. You'll most likely never meet them, so you're going to have to be able to tell your story very convincingly in your numbers and in your narrative so that they get what you're doing, because again, they're never going to meet you. And then as you really think about how do I get started and what do I want to give up, just know that if you consider equity, it is the most expensive money that you will use. Okay, now I need the tech, guys. There we go. Figured it out. Okay, so I wanted to close with this because I get 15 minutes with you guys. And basically, I just really wanted to show you, again, I told you, banks are not the first place you should think of. It's a $14 billion industry with banks, whereas it's $185 billion for what you and your family, well, you and the business owners are putting in. Your friends and family are putting in another $60 billion. So in terms of the percentage of startups that get funded by these sources, angel investors, like I told you, they're very risk averse. You wouldn't think so, but they are. They fund 0.05% of startups. VCs, less than 1%. Banks, not much better, 1.43%. And that includes all the community lending, all those cash flow lenders that I talked to you about. I already talked to you about crowdfunding. Friends and family, they're 38% of startups, and bootstrapping is 57% of startups. So you've heard it before, you'll hear it again. You know, it really is, you kind of get yourself going on your own resources, and you keep yourself going on your own hard work. But we're here to help you. Jan has a great assistance organization. We have a great assistance organization. There are other agencies and organizations we can arrange for you to get in touch with if they're appropriate at your level of development. So if you want to go there, please reach out either just directly or through Jana, and I believe my time is done. Thanks.
1 second.